Welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Grueling Truth, brought to you by Gridiron Mo, a new interactive football app where you get to call what you think the offense or defense should do during a live NFL game and see what all other fans across the country have also called. Check out Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo.com. As always, I'm your host for this football show, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I want to welcome my co-host, Matt Andruscavage.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be here tonight.
Okay. You're not real talkative tonight, I see, because you just did that 49er show. Yeah, doing a 49er show this year is kind of like going to a funeral, huh?
Well, we're hoping it doesn't end up that way, but, at least right now there's hope, and we'll see what they end up doing, but obviously I think this season really could go either way.
What's that old
Nothing would surprise me.
Hope is a city in Arkansas. All right. Tonight, our topic are the top 10 tight ends in NFL history. We're not going with anybody that is currently playing. So what was the criteria you used, and then I'll give the criteria I used.
I tried to use a mix of – I didn't want to penalize completely – guys that were more a glorified wide receiver. I did want to give more credit to tight ends that could block, especially if they could block almost as well as they could run routes and catch. I tried to use how good were they in big games, how reliable were they. Some of these, a lot of times a tight end becomes the hot route, or the guy that 3rd and 6, they're going might look for the tight end over the middle to move the chains. I tried to look at how good of a receiver were they? What did they do all around? But I didn't want to just penalize. I didn't want to just focus just because they didn't block that much. I didn't want to totally penalize them. But I probably gave a little bit more credit to tight ends that were more all around.
All righty. Well, it sounds like our criteria is about the same. So do you want me to start this one, or do you want to start it?
Oh, you can start.
All right. My number 10 actually recently passed away, be Charlie Sanders, who played for the Detroit Lions. 7-time Pro Bowl selection, was known as a great blocker. A superior blocker. Great receiver. His stats for a tight end back then were, very good, especially on a Detroit Lion team that they had some good teams when he was there in the late 60s, early 70s. I know they made the playoffs the one year, lost a 5-0 game to the Dallas Cowboys, but those were more predominantly defensive teams with the Alex Karrases and the Dick LeBeaus. He had 336 career receptions for 4,817 yards, 31 touchdowns. Member of the NFL's All-Decade team in the 1970s. He was a part of Detroit Lions' 75th all-anniversary team. So my number 10 is Charlie Sanders from the Detroit Lions.
Well, that's good. That's a very good pick. The guy that I didn't have on my list, but I do know who he is. I guess he didn't, what didn't really come to mind as far as one of the all-time greats, but he was very good. I don't disagree with really anything you said. My number 10 was Todd Christensen from the Oakland and LA Raiders. Todd Christensen was he was a very unique tight end. He would oftentimes line up as the H-back. He actually led the NFL in receptions in 1983 and 1986 with 92 and 95 catches. 5 straight Pro Bowls between 83 and 87. He was a part of 2 Super Bowl teams. And, he was just he was a different kind of tight end. He was like a tight end / fullback hybrid. Well, it probably wasn't much of a blocker, but he was just one of those guys you could rely on him a lot. And I think I don't know that they really get that 83 Super Bowl without a guy like Christensen.
Well, plus he was a white guy that had a perm. You have to respect that. Plus he was the most annoying college football announcer and NFL announcer in history, I believe. I don't have him on my top 10. Very good player. I don't think he touches a guy like Charlie Sanders, who was one of the best blockers in NFL history at tight end and one of the better receivers. Christensen had a longer career, I believe. He played a lot. He played more games than Sanders. His stats: 461 receptions, a little over 5,000 yards, 40 E's. Not a huge difference between him and Sanders when you bring in the fact that Sanders was a big-time blocker. Christensen was a decent blocker. So I don't have him on there. He was a great football player. Always annoyed me when he did games, so I just wanted to bring that up. So who's your number 9?
My number 9 is Dave Casper. Dave Casper, the Ghost. One of the things that comes to mind, obviously, the Ghost of the Post. The guy was he really played big in a lot of big games. What was really interesting is he really rivals guys like Mark Bavaro as a good blocker. I mean, it was said that he dominated larger defensive ends and outside linebackers. He was one of the guys that would bring the holes for Mark Van Agen. I think he would block for Earl Campbell. But he finished with 378 catches, over 5,200 receiving yards, and a couple of Super Bowls. He's a Hall of Famer. Due to his blocking ability, definitely felt like he was worthy of top 10. You?
All right, Dave Casper, I disagree with because I got him slightly higher, actually.
Oh, well, I'm on the right track then, right?
I don't know, Corey, if you think I know what the hell I'm talking about or not. If I don't, you're completely off base. My number 9, I've got Jerry Smith, Washington Redskins. A guy that really gets very little credit. If you look at his stats, he completely destroys Todd Christensen. Almost the same amount of yards, but he got 60 touchdown passes. And in the NFL, playing tight end in the 60s and 70s, I mean, to catch 421 balls, including 60 touchdowns, I mean, that was a record at tight end that stood for a couple decades. Named All-Pro a few times. He held several NFL records that lasted for 20 years for tight ends also. But Jerry Smith from the Washington Redskins is my number 9 guy.
Well, that's pretty fair.
Do you know who Jerry Smith is?
I've heard of him. I don't remember him being that high on the tight end list.
He actually died of AIDS and was the first gay football player that people...
Now that I did not know.
Yes. See, you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
He would have been widely accepted today. But I'm not going to go there. But, all righty. We'll leave it alone. My number 8 is Jackie Smith. Who sounds like, never mind. But he wasn't. He was straight. But number 8 was Jackie Smith. St. Louis Cardinals, 5-time Pro Bowl selection. The bad thing for Jackie is he was a great tight end. He caught 480 balls, almost 8,000 yards, 40 touchdowns. But the problem with Jackie Smith is his biggest moment was dropping the pass in Super Bowl 13. And I think, unfortunately, that is what he's remembered for. He had at least one reception in and he had a string of 45 straight games with at least one reception, which 60s and 70s was a big deal. Played in 121 straight games. And the guy was a great football player. And like I said, he's a guy that is forgotten about because for some reason, well, I mean, it's a big reason. I mean, it's the biggest football game in history played at that point, probably Super Bowl 13. He dropped the pass. They lost the game by 4 points. I think it's very unfair to say that they lost the game because of him. That was, midway through the fourth quarter. I mean, they still, they were down 35-17 at one point. Would have made it 35-24. I don't think you can say that he necessarily cost them the game. But the 14, 15 years he played with the St. Louis Cardinals, he was a top-notch tight end. I think him and Jerry Smith were the top 2 tight ends in football at that time outside of Mike Ditka. I mean, all 3 of them to me are Hall of Fame tight ends. I think all 3 of them made it also. I'm not sure about Jerry Smith, but I know Jackie Smith went in just a few years ago, and we know Ditka went in. So What's your number 8?
Well, you said his name, Mike Ditka. Mike Ditka was at least one of the top 2 or 3, if not the best, tight end in the 1960s. For sure the most probably well-known. Fantastic blocker. Everything he was pretty much the Bears' offense in the early 60s, especially on the team that went to the championship game and won in 1963. He was largely the offense. He finished with 427 catches for almost 6,000 yards and 43 touchdowns. But when you consider the era that he played in, he's a Hall of Famer, 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro. Definitely deserving. And he comes in at number 8 for me.
All right. That was Mike Ditka at number 8. I completely disagree because I've got him at number 7.
Completely disagree.
I completely disagree. Well, he was a big dude for back then, too. 6'3", 230, 235 pounds. Played for the Bears. I think people forget he played for the Eagles for a year or two also. Then he went to the Cowboys, finished his career, won a Super Bowl. His number was retired in college with the Pitt Panthers. His 89 was retired by the Bears. He's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame. I think you pretty much said it all, so I'm not going to say anything else about him.
So you're number 7, right?
Yeah.
All right, so you did 8. Jackie Smith was your 8?
Yes.
All right. My number 7 is Kellen Winslow. Winslow was probably regarded as more of a glorified receiver. But the other thing that he did that wide receivers you'd probably never see is he was really good at blocking field goals, especially in the famed Epic in Miami, where I thought he blocked 2 field goals in that game.
Yeah.
And he really was one of the first tight ends to change. Really helped change offenses. When the Eric Coryell offense came on the scene, they were good, 78 and 79. But when he showed up, they really had a new dimension with John Jefferson on the outside and Charlie Joyner on the other side. They couldn't double those guys anymore because Kellen Winslow was coming over the middle, and he was a pretty tall guy. I believe he was like 6'4" or 5, and guy could jump. Had really long strides, and I finished with 500 catches, 6,741 yards. Guy was he was consistently the guy that would haul in 80 balls and get over 1,000 yards receiving. Was not much of a blocker, but I'm not going to. I have him ranked a little low because of that, but I do think he was one of the best tight ends ever, and I do believe he's in the Hall of Fame. Yeah,
I've got him slightly higher. I'll go ahead and go with my number 6. You've already mentioned him. That was Dave Casper. The thing that's impressive about Casper to me is he has less receptions than most of the guys we've mentioned. He had 378, but over 5,000 yards and 52 touchdowns, which I think would be second on the list of all the guys that we put up here so far. The thing about him is you had Kenny Stabler, who threw the ball deep down the field. Casper was one of the first, I think, tight ends to really stretch a field. And you got to remember, they had guys like Cliff Branch, Fred Biletnikoff, which probably shortened his numbers up a little bit compared to some of these guys. Mike Ditka, can you name me a wide receiver that played for Chicago Bears in the 1960s?
Oh, boy. I could do it if I give it a little thought. There's one guy that kind of comes to mind, but his name is escaping me. So
yeah, I'm sure we're
forgetting
point somebody.
Made.
There's nobody that shows up there. So, Dave Casper, the Ghost to the Post still kind of pisses me off. I was cheering for Baltimore, even though I liked Oakland back then. But, I think it was the last time I ever cheered for a Colts team also. So they moved to Indianapolis. I decided I didn't like them anymore. So, but what do you got at number 6?
Number 6, I've got Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe, kind of along the lines of Kellen Winslow, much more of a receiver than a blocker. Guy was a decent blocker. But as a receiving tight end, he was difficult to guard to cover. He finished with 62 receiving touchdowns, which I believe is like 3rd or 4th all time. I think he's second all-time in reception. He finished with 815 catches for over 10,000 yards. Pretty much ranks among any great receiving list, not just tight ends. But he was a fiery guy. He was drafted in the 7th round, and they were able to convert him to tight end. And the 90s weren't all great for the Broncos. Early on, before they got Terrell Davis, he was pretty much their offense. And he'd get double covered, but he'd still find ways to get open. And he was real instrumental in helping the Broncos win 2 Super Bowls.
All right. I actually have him a little higher. I got a couple of the other guys you named a little higher, so I'm going to go first here because you haven't mentioned this guy yet. And maybe I can mention one that, can kind of screw you over. So my number 5 is Ozzie Newsome. Very good blocker, great receiver, 662 receptions, 7,980 yards, 47 touchdowns. Turned into a great executive with the Ravens. Won the Wizard White NFL Man of the Year on the NFL Decade or All-Decade Team of the 80s. Was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1999. Like I said, excellent blocker. Played college football at the University of Alabama. I think their team went like 42-6 the time he was there. Really, he was the biggest thing to me is Coach Paul Bear Bryant called him the greatest tight end in Alabama history. Now, that may not seem like much at that time, but if you got to remember, the great Green Bay Packer wide receiver Don Hudson was actually a tight end in college at Alabama. So, he was a total team player, great blocker, outstanding leader, great receiver with concentration, speed, hands. He had everything. Actually, as I just thought about this, maybe I should have him higher. But I got Ozzie Newsome from the Cleveland Browns at number 5. Who do you have at 5?
Number 5, I have Ozzie Newsome a little higher. My number 5 is Russ Francis. Russ Francis was played for the New England Patriots in the 70s, ended up retiring in 1980. 1982, Bill Walsh convinced him to come out of retirement, and he continued his career for another 5 years. And Russ Francis was really one of the great all-around tight ends. Being on New England, he was largely the passing offense, but they didn't have a great offense when he was in New England, so he didn't have a ton of catches. But he definitely was also very helpful when he came to the 49ers. Especially during that '84 run when they went 15-1, he was one of the key components. His stats aren't extremely stellar. He finished with about 400 catches, a little over 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. But he was a complete player, and New England had some success in the 70s, largely due to him on the offense, and also definitely helped bring a Super Bowl back to the Niners. So I got Russ Francis at number 5.
All right. I think it's a homer call because he played on the Super Bowl 1949ers, but I don't see how Russ Francis could be anywhere in this top 10, and I think it's almost criminal to have him ahead of guys like Mike Ditka. He was a really good player. That's it. He made 3 Pro Bowls, 77, 78, 79. His numbers are above average, but I just don't see it, man.
Well, it was one of those areas where I like the all-around guys, too. So I wasn't going totally off numbers. All around.
If you look at Mike Ditka's numbers, they're not too far off of Russ Francis, and he might have caught more passes. And you got a guy like Charlie Sanders, Jerry Smith, were all just as good of blockers, too, but they were better receivers.
No, I'm not going to disagree with you on that.
Okay. I usually let everything you go say, but I think the Russ Francis is a push. When we first talked about doing this list, Russ Francis would have been on my top 10 without thinking about it. But without thinking about it, I wouldn't have remembered the Jackie Smiths, the Jerry Smiths, the Charlie Sanders. And I just think their numbers were a lot better. I think that actually after giving all my reasons for, Ozzie Newsome, you can probably give me crap about that. So I think I have him too low.
No, I got Newsome a little higher.
I got him too low. But I think he should be in the top 3, if not higher. But what the heck are you going to do? Where are we at? I'm at number 4?
I believe so.
All right. My number 4 is Kellen Winslow, which I think you already called, 6'5", 250. You already mentioned Winslow, right?
Yeah, Winslow is my number 7.
Okay, so Winslow ahead of Francis I have a hard time with, because receiving-wise, they're not even comparable. Blocking-wise, Francis was a lot better blocker, but, I mean, just his accomplishments is why I would put him ahead of Russ Francis. I mean, you're looking at a guy that's in the Hall of Fame, 50th anniversary team for the Chargers, 40th anniversary team for the Chargers, NFL leader in receptions twice, all-decade team in the 80s, 75th anniversary team, won a Pro Bowl MVP, which nobody really cares about, but he did. 5 Pro Bowls, Francis is 3. Just a comparison, I mean, the guy was a stud. He contributed more than just tight ends. As a tight end, he contributed on special teams. One of the first wide receivers out there, other than, I mean, like the Jerry Smiths, Jackie Smiths. There's probably like 6 or 7 guys before 1980. There were guys that you could put out on a slot or even put out on a flank and run them downfield and throw them the ball at tight end, and he was one of those guys. So that's my number 4.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this finally puts to rest. I remember way back we used to have these discussions, and I thought you talked me out of having Kellen Winslow really high.
That was at number 1. I was number 4.
I didn't have him at number
really
1.
No, see, this is the thing I've got. This is how I look at it. He is my number 1 guy that was mainly just a blocker, or that was mainly just a receiver. My top 3 guys were all, I mean, one of them was a great blocker, and the other 2 were good blockers.
Right.
I mean, Kellen Winslow, though, would be my first guy that, wasn't the greatest blocker in the world, but he was such a damn good receiver that it's hard to leave him off. I don't think he should be at anybody's number 1, 2, or 3. I got him at 4. And I think it was when we used to have the discussion on who was the best that ever lived.
Oh, okay.
Which, to me, he's nowhere near my top 2 guys. Because my top 2 guys are the most complete tight ends I've ever seen.
All righty. Well, my number 3 is Ozzie Newsome. Ozzie Newsome, you broke his career down pretty well. He's 47 career touchdowns, but his yardage list, where he is in yardage, he's number 5 all time, despite a lot of guys that played a lot later with really good quarterbacks. And he's still I think he's number 3 in receptions by a tight end, and he played like 30 years ago. And, one of the best all-around tight ends I ever saw. I always had him, if I was ever going to make a list, I always had him up pretty high, the best in the game. But I don't need to really belabor it. So I thought you broke his career down pretty well.
All righty. Number 3, I'm going to go ahead and give, since you already gave him, Sterling Sharpe. I actually think he was a better blocker than what he was.
You mean Shannon Sharpe, right?
Yeah, Shannon. I don't know. Whatever. It's one of them Sharps, the one that played at Green Bay. I said, not the one that played at Green Bay. Yeah. Well, it's easy to mix them up. They're on TV and everything, and they get the same initials. So, but I think he was a better blocker than what he was given credit for. It's not like he was Kellen Winslow. Won a couple Super Bowls. Big reason why they won those Super Bowls at some point. Set a ton of tight end records. About all of them were broken by Tony Gonzalez, who I will talk about later. 9 years with Denver, or 10 years with Denver, I believe. A couple years with the Ravens, and a couple years with the Broncos again. Won 3 Super Bowls, 8 Pro Bowls, 815 receptions, over 10,000 yards, 62 touchdowns. You pretty much said it all about him anyways. Like I said, though, I do believe he was a better blocker than what a lot of people said. Ozzie Newsome said that he was a great route runner, but also could block when need be. So I don't think he was going out there trying to blow people up all the time. But if he needed to block, he could block. To me, physically reminded me not quite as big and thick as Kellen Winslow. but I think very similar physically, only he was a little bit quicker, and like I said, Winslow was probably a little bit stronger.
Right.
Can't believe I called him Sterling. But
it's getting late.
Sterling needs to be mentioned, though, because people forget about him all the time. Go ahead.
What number are we at here? Because I feel like
number 3.
I feel like I got messed up. I'm at number 3? Okay.
Yeah.
I actually messed up my list. I was supposed to have Newsome at number 3 and this guy at number 4. I got John Mackey. John Mackey, one of the first really great tight ends, played in the 60s, was Johnny Unitas' tight end for a lot of years. Guy had a lot of speed. It looks like he was at least a fairly good blocker. 6'2", 224. He's a 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time All-Pro. He didn't have a very long career, but played about 9 years. Ended up with 330 catches, over 5,200 yards, and 38 touchdowns. Pretty comparable to a lot of the other guys on the list, but came up with a lot of big plays. And he was just a big guy. He was hard to bring down. He was reliable underneath, and then he could take a short pass and turn it into a very long game. He's a very, very, very fun player to watch.
Well, I'll tell you, I think he was a very good blocker from everything I've seen, which is why I've got him at number 2. I think he was also the NFL Players Association president at one point also. No, he died of, I think, dementia as they passed away. I think he did pass, yeah, because he died at the age of 69. I think that was back 2 or 3 years ago. But I know he had dementia. But he was a great player, 331 receptions, over 5,000 yards. That's like 16 yards per catch, 38 touchdown receptions. But the thing that separates him from a Sharpe and a Winslow, who may have been slightly better receivers, is I think he was just a better pure blocker than they were. So I would say all around, just a better football player. So who you got at number 2?
Well, this was difficult because I got, my last 2 guys, I got one of them who was probably the best all-around tight end I ever saw, and then another one who did a lot of things very well. Might not have been the greatest blocker, but, man, he was such a target. So I kind of went with the all-around. I might catch a little heat for this, but my number 2 is Tony Gonzalez.
Crazy.
Why?
Because there's nobody better than him.
Yeah, I mean, it was between him and Bavaro. And,
oh, my God.
Bavaro
really? Mark Bavaro is the great. You got Mark Bavaro as the number 1 tight end of all time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got to take a break.
And
we got to take a break so we can collect ourselves from this, because I was not prepared for this. But we need to take a break and hear a word from our sponsor, DraftKings. We'll be back in a minute.
Your season-long fantasy football lineup is locked in and ready for action, but you don't have to wait till Week 16 to get paid. Put your fantasy skills to the test starting Sunday at DraftKings.com, America's favorite one-week fantasy football site where you could kick the season off by winning $2 million. It's the biggest fantasy football contest ever. $10 million in prizes are up for grabs, including $2 million for first place and $1 million for second. One-week fantasy means no season-long commitments. It's fantasy football on demand. Play where you want, when you want, with the players you want. Then turn your love of football into a life-changing payday. Just pick up your players, pile up the points, and pick up the cash. That's it. You've never experienced football like this. This isn't fantasy as usual. This is DraftKings. Welcome to the big time. Hurry to DraftKings.com now and use promo code SPREAKER to play for free for a shot at $2 million in the Week 1 Millionaire Maker. Enter SPREAKER for free entry now at DraftKings.com. That's DraftKings.com.
And we're back. We're looking at the top 10 tight ends in NFL history, and Matt Andruscavage is making the case that Mark Bavaro was a better tight end than Tony Gonzalez. Go ahead, state your case.
Well, it's largely based on blocking. He's a very big target. Did everything well, great hands, but I felt he was a little bit better blocker than Tony Gonzalez, but Gonzalez was a much better receiver.
Yeah, but see, this is the thing. Tony Gonzalez was a pretty good blocker. I mean, but on top of being a pretty good blocker, he holds almost every record.
Yeah.
In the
well,
history
it's also
of
largely.
I mean,
he played a long time too in different offenses, but I didn't want to go totally by stats. I mean, you're right. The stats will. He's going to blow everybody away statistically.
Well, give me Bavaro's stat.
It's very similar to John Mackey's. 300 and let's see, I got it here. Mark Bavaro had 351 catches for about 5,000 yards and 39 touchdowns. Very similar to a lot of the other tight ends that we had listed. I wasn't, like I said, my criteria wasn't just going off stats. Off overall ability.
I've watched him as a blocker. He was not a better blocker than Mike Ditka. You watch Ditka in the 60s on the film that's out there of him as a blocker, he was technically great. Bavaro was not a technically great blocker. Bavaro was a brute force blocker, which means he got to the point of attack. If you were there, he would annihilate your ass. If you had an angle on him, he had a hard time blocking you because his feet weren't that fast. How many years was he really a top-notch tight end? Also, is my next question. 6 years.
Well, that is a good point because you could probably make the case for maybe 5 years. He was
you look at really great tight end. Because I'll tell you, I mean, to me, Dan Ross was a better receiver and just as good a blocker. But I don't put Dan Ross on this list because he was probably only really great for 4 years. And, I mean, a lot of that is the fact that Mark Bavaro was a brute force blocker. I mean, he didn't take angles. He went straight through you. The problem was this. If you watch him some of them games, especially if you're playing, athletic linebackers or safeties that are coming up to make a play, he missed a fair amount of blocks like that. I mean, if he's blocking on a run play, yeah, he was the best I ever saw doing that. But blocking out in space on a sweep play or getting downfield to block on a screen pass or something, he was usually lagging behind, and the guy he blocked was not the guy that he was initially supposed to block.
Yeah, he didn't have a ton of speed there. I mean, he was kind of the guy you'd see rumbling down the field. I don't know. I saw him make a lot of big plays. He was a good tight end in their offense. That play.
What was it, 1987, where he about ran through the entire 49er defense?
I do remember that play. That wasn't my benchmark, though.
Oh, it should have been. You know what? If you would have said it was just because of that play, I could have bought it more.
Whatever. You would argue with me. You would just say you would have just called me a homer. You would not have agreed with me.
That's the opposite of a homer.
Come on, Mike. Just admit it. Just admit it. You would not have agreed with me.
Yeah. No. I would. I still wouldn't agree with you that Mark freaking Bavaro was the greatest tight end in NFL history. Just say that.
Well, I do remember.
Just one time.
I do remember one time you saying that too. But
I never said that. I guarantee you, I never.
You told me Mark Bavaro, Dan Ross, and Russ Francis were the 3 best tight ends you ever saw.
I never said that.
Oh my God!
I didn't.
That's why it's good
I
we're
said
recording.
In the 80s. If you gave me in the 80s, I might have said that.
You said those are the best all-around tight ends you've ever seen.
I don't believe I ever said that. I believe you're putting words in my mouth. Do you have tape of this?
No, I don't think I am.
I'm pretty sure because I could never see myself saying that about Russ Francis. I can tell you this. If Mark Bavaro, the career he had, would have lasted another 3 or 4 years, he'd be in my top 10 easy. It's just hard to list the guy as one of the 10 greatest when he really only had 4 or 5 really good years.
Well, yeah, I know.
Which is another reason why he's not in the Hall of Fame either.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you're just going on how good a blocker and receiver they were, there's guys on here that if they weren't as good a blocker, they were damn close that had a lot better numbers.
Like I said, I was using a combo of, the guys with the great numbers and the guys with that were great all around that didn't really have all the glamour numbers.
But look on the bright side by doing this list. We got Jerry Smith, which means we've got the first gay guy we've ever listed in a top 10 list that we know of. That we know of,
right.
I just wanted to bring that up. Hey, real quick before we finish up the show, we're going to have to go take another break from a sponsor. So make sure you check out Gridiron Mo, the app, www.gridironmo.com, before the first game of the season tomorrow night. So we'll be back after a word from them. Hey, everybody, go check out a brand-new football app called Gridiron Mo. It's an app where you get to call what you think the offense or defense should do during a live NFL game and see what all others around the country have also called. So make sure you check out Gridiron Mo app at www.gridironmo.com. And we're back, where me and Matt Andruscavage just had the discussion on the top 10 tight ends of all time. My number one.
Let's talk about Tony Gonzalez now.
I am. That's what I'm getting ready to do.
Yeah.
I didn't give my number one yet. You don't have to interrupt me all the time. But Matt's number one was Mark Bavaro. So send all your messages to him, all the hate mail. Except for people in Jersey, they'll be sending me horse heads. My number one was Tony Gonzalez, 14-time Pro Bowler. I don't even know where to begin. He's got so many records. I mean, he knows about every record
all the
on the man. He's tied for the most Pro Bowl appearances by any player over 14. He's on the NFL's All-Decade Team 2000, 1,325 receptions, 15,127 yards, 111 touchdowns. I mean, that's mind-blowing when you look at the other stats. And he also averaged like 7 points a game for the California Golden Bears playing college basketball.
Yeah, he's a good ball player, good basketball player.
I don't know, because I would list, we've got first tight end to reach 15,000 yards. He holds record.
Statistically, nobody comes close. Agreed. There's no question. Statistically, with
he owns
with
like
his
35
receiving numbers,
plus he could block.
Yeah, with his receiving records, I mean, are crazy. He was the best receiving tight end that ever played. There's no question.
Yeah, and he put it like this.
I was torn between the two criteria.
Hey, for a comparison, I believe Tony Gonzalez could probably be in the bottom part of the top 10 blocking tight ends. I don't think Mark Bavaro could be anywhere in the top 10 for just straight out receiving the balls with tight end.
No, you probably got a point there on the receiving for sure. I mean,
yeah. So if we're comparing the two together, one is like the best receiver in history at tight end, and he's probably in the bottom of the top 10 blocking-wise. The other guy is a top 5 blocker and probably a top 20 receiver.
I don't know. I've seen Tony Gonzalez get blown off the ball, and I just never really thought of him as a good blocker.
He was a good blocker. I'm not saying he was a great blocker. He was nowhere near Bavaro, but also Bavaro was nowhere near him as a receiver. And you know what?
I agree with that.
I'll tell you what. When they both played, which, I mean, if it's 60s, 70s, I could give you the blocking thing being a bigger deal. But, I mean, Bavaro was the main wide receiver for the New York Giants.
Yeah.
You know, Tony Gonzalez was the main wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs or the Atlanta Falcons, whichever team he played for. So, I mean, it's not like it was the old days when Bavaro played. I mean, the rules had changed. They'd loosened up a little bit. So I do think, put it like this, if you were to just go and put Bavaro's 4 best years by Gonzalez's 4 best years, it's not even close.
Well, no, not receiving-wise.
But we're just saying the 4 best years.
Yeah, I mean, statistically, it's not going to compare.
I'll just stick with Tony Gonzalez no matter what, because the thing is this. If I'm coaching a team, I don't care if he can block or not if he catches me, 1,300 balls for 15,000 yards and 111 touchdowns. Because, number one, Matt, this is the thing. I'm not going to ask him to block a whole hell of a lot.
Well, I guess that's the thing. I mean, this is why the topic is interesting, because every person I've ever talked to has a different criteria for tight end. Some people like the all-around. Some people like just the receiving stats. Some people absolutely hate the fact that tight ends don't block. It's like people who get mad that the corners that don't tackle. You know, it's very
for people to get
a lot
mad
of different.
Tight ends don't block. I mean, a lot of teams don't even use a tight end anymore.
Yeah, that is true too. A lot of teams.
Especially in college. In the NFL, you see them a lot less for a lot of teams than you used to. It's just like the fullback. The fullback's pretty much dead in the NFL. And teams that use a fullback usually turn them into an H-back. And it's not the fullback playing the H-back, it's a tight end that they move to an H-back. So there's probably only, half the NFL teams at best that carry a true fullback anymore.
Right. I guess this was one of those areas where I felt Tony Gonzalez was definitely the best receiving tight end ever, and I felt Tony Gonzalez was the best all-around tight end ever, and I just put a little bit more weight on the all-around, not really regarding the statistics, because obviously, Gonzalez' stat, no one's going to ever touch that for a tight end.
Yeah, but once again, it's hard to judge a guy in just 4 great years. It's just 4 years, which is unfair.
Yeah, you have a really long career.
Whatever, but, we'll just agree to disagree. Made the show better anyways if we just agreed all the way through.
It's never fun if we have the exact same list, but...
Yeah, but... All right, remember, you can check us out at ngscsports.com. You can check us out on Twitter. I'm at RiverMonster11. Matt is...
at MTAScavage.
You can also check us out on the web at www.thegruelingcruth.com. You can check us out on Facebook. Follow and like our Facebook page. All the shows will be posted on there as soon as they're done. I think we're going to have a show tomorrow night also, Matt, top 10 upsets in sports history.
Yes.
And there will be no, what was that again? Skateboarding or something? No extreme sports, I guess?
Well, you brought up gymnastics, and gymnastics is definitely not one of my fortes. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it's not one that I know.
Olympic stuff.
I'm admitting that I don't know much about gymnastics when it comes to upsets and things like that, and with the Olympics. So I brought up Tony Hawk, and I wanted to know if somebody had ever
but Tony Hawk
upset
is
Tony
not
Hawk.
Tony Hawk does not compete in the sport, though.
You can't just understand where I'm coming from and understand where the question came from.
Skateboarding is not a sport.
You just got to shoot it down.
For everybody out there that likes NASCAR, that's not a sport either. But I just figured I'd bring that up. And if anybody doesn't like that,
so gymnastics is more of a sport than NASCAR.
Well, gymnastics is a sport.
How? I'm not disagreeing with you. I'd just like to hear your explanation.
How is it a sport?
Yeah, I'm just
curious. It takes some athletic ability.
Well, doesn't it take some athletic ability to be a driver at high speeds? No,
that's more of an endurance athlete. You know what? It's not really a sport when maybe the greatest one to ever do it was Jeff Gordon. He's like 5'2" and weighs 104 pounds.
Well, so horse racing can't be a sport then, right?
It is for the horse. The other thing is just some tiny guy holding on for dear freaking life, hoping he doesn't fall off and get trampled and making news.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Well, I'm just saying, I guess I'm just admitting
pounds.
right off the top.
What the hell are you going to do other than be a jockey?
I'm just admitting right off the top, I don't know much about gymnastics.
Yeah, but I'm just
I'm not saying I don't respect it.
If you're a grown-ass man and you weigh 100 pounds, you're a jockey. There's nothing else you're going to do. What else are you going to do?
Right.
Be a paperweight? Shit.
Maybe a long snapper.
You can't be a long snapper because at some point, what if you have to run down on the punt? Well, maybe they wouldn't be able to find you because you're so tiny, or they'd step on you and end up a speck on the turf.
Right.
But I digress. We must get off of here. I'm sure that you have something more entertaining to do.
Well,
like go to bed and get to work the next morning.
Yeah, so we're planning on doing the top 10 sports upsets of all time.
All time. Tomorrow night, we got to do it after the Patriots and Steelers game, or if it becomes a blowout, we can do it a little earlier.
Right.
I got to cheer for the Steelers lose so my Bengals can get up a game on them right away.
Yeah, I see the Patriots winning that for sure.
And remember, you can check us out, iHeartRadio. When you go to iHeartRadio, just go to NGSC Sports. Same thing with TuneIn. Just go to NGSC Sports. iTunes, Spreaker, pretty much everything else. We will also have a Green Bay Packers show, which will go out Friday morning. So remember, Friday morning, if you check out the Grueling Truth Facebook page, you will find the Cincinnati Bengals weekly show with myself and Joe Kelly. You'll find a San Francisco 49ers weekly show with Matt and Dexter Carter, and Bryant Young was their guest this last episode. That'll be out Friday morning. And then we're going to have Evan Wittallison will be the host of the Green Bay Packers show with Troy Otratovich, and that will also go out Friday morning. So you got any parting words, Matt?
No, I guess I really don't.
Well, I thought you were going to have some with the little pause. I guess that's dramatic pause. You've been taking those acting classes.
I thought about it.
Again.
Well, I thought about it, and I just didn't really think I think everything that needed to be said was said tonight.
All right. Well, hell, at least we left nothing unsaid.
Well, good time, good lists, and, different criterias. I don't know. I guess I really don't have anything.
It is. I think you already know I won this one, but that's all right.
Well, I think I told you that going in. I didn't feel real confident about my list on this one.
But, all righty, guys. Well, we will catch you. Make sure you check out the Grilling Truth Facebook page, and definitely go hit up Gridiron Mo at www.gridironmo.com. So for Matt Andruscavage, I'm Mike Goodpaster. We'll see you next time on the Grilling Truth, where the legends speak.